paging Pete Buttigieg. Pete Buttigieg? We have an emergency in the supply chain. Has anyone seen the Secretary of Transportation?
Welcome back to the channel today, everybody. So in case you haven't noticed, we are having a huge supply chain crisis in this country right now. And one of the biggest questions being asked is, where is the Secretary of Transportation? See, I think this is what happens when you hire people because they're gay or because of optics and not because they're the right person for the job. And before you ask what my qualifications are, I have a degree in logistics management and 10 years of experience. So I kind of know a little bit about this topic. So apparently Pete Buttigieg has been on paternity leave since about mid-August when his twins were born, which, that's fair. Everybody kind of deserves the paternity leave and everything like that. You can be for paternity leave and then show how incompetent government is, but that's really what this video is about. Maybe he should just stay at home, because this video is really about how the government created this supply chain mess that we're going through, and really how the government is incompetent as a whole. See, there are issues going down the entire supply chain. The prime example that we're seeing a lot of this at is the Port of Los Angeles. They're not able to clear the docks fast enough because there is a truck driver shortage. Also because of the labor unions and the rules with the federal government and everything like that, they haven't been able to run 24-hour operations, which the president has said this week they will start allowing them to do in a crisis. So I'll go back to is if something is so important to deregulate in a crisis, why can't they do it all the time? And if you don't know, the ports are actually run by Port Authority, which is a publicly held company. So it's usually in conjunction with that state and that entity. So these aren't private organizations that are doing this. This is the government. This is the government's role and responsibility. And just like everything we see with government, they are so inept at being able to do it properly. So now we're starting to see containers stack up, and then the ships stack into the harbor. And not to mention, these ships that are in the harbor have had to anchor in spots where they're not used to anchoring because they aren't used to having ships that far out, which has caused one of these anchors to actually catch an oil pipeline, causing an oil spill. But what's interesting is you really haven't heard much about this oil spill, have you? Because if it was reported, it would highlight the supply chain issues that this administration is having. Never mind the fact that gas prices are skyrocketing, stores are stocking out of goods, and inflation overall is just going up because the supply is down. Again, standard economics, supply and demand. When supply goes down, prices go up. So guess what's happened? With the government failing, the private market is taking into its own hands what should be in their hands anyways, and they are creating the solution. If you didn't know, so Amazon has secured a 20-year lease on a cargo hub at the Newark airport. So there's also talk about Amazon and Walmart and others starting to open up their own seaports, not operated by the Port Authority. And then they would actually lease space to other big businesses, right? Many of these companies, I don't know if a lot of people know that Amazon actually owns its own water freight business as well. So they have ships and everything that operate. Walmart as well, and many other companies are running these cargo ships. And so then it really goes to beg the question, if they're able to now secure these ports, again, why do we need government? Why do we need somebody like Pete Buttigieg or his undersecretary being so important when an issue happens and you can't find them, that they're unaccountable? Private companies are held accountable. Government officials are not. I think the biggest issue is, yes, Pete is on paternity leave, but he has an undersecretary as well. So nobody has made a statement. The president is making a statement. But where is Pete Buttigieg? I understand he's on paternity leave, but this is a crisis situation, and I've worked many jobs where yes, you get on paternity leave, but when there is an emergency in your department, you kind of have a responsibility to come back and at least address the issue and see what's going on and make a plan, and then you can go back onto your paternity leave. I mean, could you imagine if somebody like a CEO of a company just let their company fail and went on paternity leave and just let the company just kind of go by the wayside? That's not really how this works. Um, as much as, yes, I believe that men paternity leave is a valid thing, and you should be able to, unwind and have bonding time with your child. Um, you also have responsibilities to this nation as the Secretary of Transportation, which again, maybe he should just stay home. I think this shows that the Department of Transportation really isn't needed if the private government or the private market can do it even better. This is kind of like the Department of Transportation's Afghanistan, if you really look at it. Big issues going on. It's in their department, and nobody's going to be held accountable for it. It's just going to hope it. They're just going to hope it goes away. Which again, the private market is going to fix this, but then they're going to get demonized for being too big. And that's the issue we have: is the private market will effectively do what needs to be done, fix the mistakes of government, and then the government will turn around and say, private market is the problem. It's a catch-22, right? I mean, you can't make people realize what we already know. Unfortunately, a lot of people will not see this for what it is. COVID restrictions have caused a lot of havoc on how this works. So these signs, I've seen these types of signs in every single state that I've been in this year, and I've been in a couple. So companies begging for workers, but they're not getting those workers because they're being paid more to stay home, or they're not being incentivized enough to come back to work, even though these places are paying like $2,000 signing bonuses. And California restrictions are even worse, right? So why are people going to want to go work at the port when they can just stay home? And we're seeing way too many regulations on like truck drivers. What they need to do is deregulate. So truck drivers, that's a hard job. And I've had a lot of truck drivers get on me for saying that there's a driver shortage, because it's not that there's a driver shortage, that they have enough drivers, but not enough drivers that are working, which is a shortage. You don't have enough drivers on the road to move all the supply that needs to be moved. That's a shortage. Doesn't matter if they're certified or not. That's still a shortage because you don't have enough on the road that's willing to work. And I actually say this as a positive for the truck drivers that are out there. It is a hard job. It is a grueling job. And it's a job that has high turnover, and it's a job that has it causes a lot of burnout, and there's just not enough people out there willing to deal with the grueling aspects of driving a truck and being in moving this supply, right? But they are very much a backbone of this country, and that's where a lot of this supply chain issues start. I mean, and then there's, again, way too much focus on government operations, government operating ports. Governments shouldn't be really in the business of operating ports. I mean, the time that it takes for items to go through customs is an exorbitant amount anyways. So the operations at the port, it comes down to like safety. Like in the early 2000s, there was a Dubai national company that was trying to own and operate ports, and they were afraid that it was going to be just basically an operation to smuggle goods, smuggle weapons, smuggle people, and drugs, which again kind of goes back to the whole war on drugs issue that we've brought up in this channel. But I'm not going to kind of go into that right now. But it's all linked, and it all has to do with this. But I mean, if you have private organizations running these ports, and okay, have government inspectors on these ports, because as a minarchist, the only thing that government has a responsibility to do is protect our borders. Okay, let's talk about that and how we can make that more efficient. But we don't need government basically owning all these ports and running these ports, and then regulating them so they don't even work. They don't even run for 24 hours a day. You need to be able to, a private company would have 3 shifts running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and whatever was optimized for the known supply that was coming in. Especially right now when we're coming up to the Christmas season, we know that there's going to be a lot of items coming in, which is really, it's going to take probably until about January when the Chinese New Year's happens and China manufacturing goes on, holiday for 2 months. It's probably going to take about that time before we can actually get out of this. I think that's kind of what they're thinking right now, is they're going to buy their time and wait till China stops manufacturing so much. But even still, we're going to have a lot of issues in our grocery stores and everything else. And a lot of that comes down to the truck driver issue. Some of it has to do with supply issues because of COVID and everything like that, and as well as cost issues. Inflation has been crazy, and now we have oil prices going through the roof because, again, like there was an oil spill off the coast of California that they're not talking about, and prices of gas are the highest I've ever seen them been. I think that they are the highest they've ever been. So what we need to do is deregulate, decentralize, and get the government out of the way. And for Christ's sake, send some of these ships through the Panama Canal, send them over to the Texas ports. Those Texas ports would love to have some of that business and push that supply across this country and, get us out of this backlog. We built that canal for a reason. Let's use it. But anyways, let me know what you think in the comment section below. Click that like and subscribe button, and then go make sure you follow me on Instagram and Twitter, and I will see you next time.